The impact of the Reformation today jumps straight off the pages of our history books. James Madison, the father of the Constitution and the author of the Bill of Rights, credits reformer Martin Luther and his doctrine of the two kingdoms for his ideas on church and state. In an 1821 letter to F.L. Schaeffer, Madison writes,
"It illustrates the excellence of a system to which the genius and courage of Luther led the way between what is due Caesar and what is due God. That without a legal incorporation of religious and civil polity, neither could be supported."
James Madison and other founders of the country valued the Reformation first of all, from the standpoint of the priesthood of all believers. In other words, the people are empowered to make decisions for themselves, not only with respect to their spiritual life, but also to as far as their life in this world is concerned. So you have really the seedbed for the birth of democracy in the Reformation.
I suspect what Madison was talking about, and at least the way we've come to understand it in our country, is that church and state refers to two institutions. The institution of government and then the institution of the church. Actually, we're talking about two institutions within the same realm. So in other words, when Luther talks about the two realms, he's talking about the two ways in which God rules. He rules in the left-hand realm. I would argue you could call it the realm of creation. And in the left-hand realm, God is ruling for the purpose of preserving life, enhancing life, supporting life within creation. The right-hand realm is where God works his work of redemption in Christ, gathering a new church for the sake of the new creation. Now, within those two realms, I think it's probably somewhat of a stroke of genius on Madison's part to speak of the distinction of two institutions within the left-hand realm.
The U.S. American principle of the separation of church and state, Luther would have found very unrealistic because he believed that every society needs some kind of ideological base. And he didn't think it was absolutely necessary for a functioning society to be Christian. He said Turkish society can also function well. And he thought ancient Rome, ancient Greece had a functioning society without the Christian basis that his society had. But he always saw leaders as working from some religious convictions about what is good for society, what it means to be human, what puts the world in its framework.
Now, with respect to the government itself, I think James Madison finds or plays a very important role because he's really the author, the principal author of the Constitution. And what's unique about him is that, unlike Thomas Jefferson, who went to William and Mary in Virginia for college, James Madison goes to the College of New Jersey, which today is Princeton, which is a Presbyterian school, and he's exposed to Calvinism, which is part of the Reformation. And two things really stand out in terms of his thinking about the government. And number one is that in a Calvinist fashion, he recognizes the sovereignty of God. That God is the one ultimately to whom we owe allegiance. And so that feeds into his thinking about there needs to be religious freedom in America so that people are free to exercise the duty that they have that transcends the duty that they may have to any form of society, any form of government, allegiance to any institution, and to exercise the allegiance that they have ultimately to God. And then secondly, in Calvinist fashion, he recognizes the factor of human depravity, human sinfulness. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's really based upon Madison's understanding of Reformation theology.
Perhaps no other aspect of Luther's social and ethical teaching produces as much discussion or controversy as his phrase, two kingdoms. And whether James Madison rightly interpreted it or not, the fact remains that roots of the term separation of church and state can be traced back to the days of the Reformation.